Like I said, you're going to be, talking about digital transformations, the hidden potential behind them, and I know this is a hot topic, but it's something that we feel here at Verison is not really discussed that often. The reasoning behind digital transformations and why you really can't afford to wait any longer. So, with that being said, we'll do a quick introduction. I've got with me Aaron Meredith. Now he's the industry executive advisor here at Verison, and he's got 20 years of industry experience that I'm going to let him dive into. Started in the Peace Corps, and just for some fun little factoids, he loves seafood. So Aaron, I'll kick it off to you.
All right. Thanks, John. I do love seafood. I actually love all food. So just to not discriminate, seafood is on the list. So that's fantastic. Appreciate the intro, John. Crawford. See, that's what you get for putting seafood on the list. So anyway, my name's Aaron Meredith. Appreciate everyone joining today. I've been with Verison since January of this year. And as Crawford mentioned, I have over 20 years of experience in industry. And most of that manufacturing operations, my background's chemical engineering. So I'm not from the software industry. I'm in it now. And over the years, I've worked in many different businesses, for very large enterprises that employ tens of thousands of people and have hundreds of facilities. So, and jobs ranging from being a maintenance coordinator in a box plant to, having responsibility for multiple operations to working in the businesses as well. The last, several years of my career to date, I spent a lot of time in digital transformation and thinking through how do we actually drive digital transformation for industry, for manufacturers like the company I was working for at the time. And along that path, also was helping to run a supply chain innovation center where we were working on bringing forward emerging technologies to solve common problems in supply chain that we experience across all industries. And this is where I came across Verison a couple of years ago. We worked with them, had a lot of success, and so much so that I was compelled to join the team this year, and very excited to be here and doing that. So today we're going to talk about digital transformation, what it is, what it isn't, why it's important, and where there's a gap in many companies' digital transformation strategy today, and what we here at Verison are doing to address that. So, to get started, we've all heard about digital transformation. You've heard about it. You read about it. Your CEOs of your companies beat you over the head on it. Everybody wants to transform and do it fast. And many of us are actively engaged in it. And it's clear why. There's a lot of value to be had out there doing this. Many companies have unlocked tremendous value or can unlock tremendous value in the future. And the claims of what has been achieved and what is yet to be achieved, as demonstrated in this slide here, is a bit head spinning. But I'm sure you've seen the articles and so on and so forth that show that companies are actually beginning to realize these step change improvements in performance and results from their digital transformation efforts. Not all companies are there. Many haven't even started, although we're already aware of this, but it's unfortunate that not everybody's on board as of yet, as it appears. And there's lots of reasons for that. And it can be very confusing and very daunting because you hear all these terms out there, and sometimes folks struggle to figure out where to begin. So, or to what their strategies should be. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. But before we even get into digital transformation, what it is, what Verison does in that space, I think it's useful to visit, why are we even doing this? Why are companies even engaging in digital transformation? And, I've had these conversations with folks here at Verison, and I can speak to, my experience in this space. Several years back, our chief operating officer of the company I was working for challenged the group that I was working in to bring forward what should we be working on that if we don't work on it, we're going to regret it down the road. And what we came back with was a bit of a call to action. And first and foremost, we're heavy manufacturing, industrial, and like many others in the United States, we realized that in the next 5 to 10 years, 30% of our workforce is going to retire. 30%. That's a really large number, and a result of, really the baby boom generation retiring. And unfortunately, we determined that if we wanted to replace those positions, that skill and knowledge, these valuable employees that were going to retire from our organization, there were really only about 2 out of 10 folks in the workforce here that we would even consider, qualified to, replace those positions. And, another unfortunate piece of the story is that when you looked at the younger generations, there was really no interest in going to work in a factory. So we had a very small percentage of folks that were really going to be able to address this 30% loss in the workforce. And we had to do something about it quickly, or we'll be unable to continue operating our operations. And, I think that, that was the birth of our journey into digital transformation. And I think many other companies have come into it the same way. Some I've talked to more recently are starting to realize maybe they're behind the 8 ball on it, but it's a real fact that we face in industry today. So at the time, though, and today, it still remains true, there were other dynamics at play that could provide a path forward. So first of all, emerging technologies of all sorts were suddenly becoming broadly available, affordable, and accessible in ways that never were before. Processing power was becoming cheap and on demand in the cloud. Storage of data, has become immensely cheaper and on the cloud. The availability and cost of sensors for equipment or process technology had changed dramatically so that we could start to put these on nearly anything that we could measure and transmit that data via the internet. Advanced analytical tools, AI, machine learning were emerging as more kind of standard issue types of tools rather than something out of a science fiction movie, right? So you had this world of emerging technologies that was coming available to industry as it never had before. And you had a generation of folks entering the workforce that likes technology a lot. So that felt like an opportunity, right? So we got the technology, we've got a workforce that likes to work with technology, and now we can start to think about how do we address this big problem that we have with the exit from the workforce. And but before we came up with our strategy for how to address this, we had another piece of our benchmarking, the learning we had gotten in this exercise we were charged to do. That we saw that, we're not the first to go through this. Japan had an aging population and a wave of retirements in advance of the United States. And they had made the same realization and had done some really innovative things to address it, and basically automated a lot of stuff. They built a lot of robots, and they built a lot of automation technology. And basically, whatever this person does today, I'm going to have some sort of automation or robotics do that tomorrow. By the way, it's not no wonder Japan's a leader in robotics for this reason. But something unexpected happened when they did that. And what happened is they saw a big decline in productivity. So why is that? What happened? Well, when they automated, they largely maintained the same business and work processes they had before automation. That combination didn't work as planned. So what they did, they went back and said, well, how do we actually rewrite these business and work practices that truly take advantage of this technology so that we're actually doing something different? And when they did that, they reversed that downward trend and in fact soared to levels they'd never achieved before in terms of productivity. So the reason I bring up all this backdrop is, when we talk about digital transformation, what it is, what it isn't, the first sign you should look for if you've embarked on digital transformation to know if you're successful, you'll see transformative results. And if you don't, then maybe it wasn't really digital transformation, right? So it's really about achieving transformative results. And we talked about all this technology that's widely available today, but as you could see from the Japan story that I told, just throwing technology at the problem is not going to solve it. You may have some improvements, some process improvements to process, to existing outcomes of some form or fashion, but it's probably not going to be transformational if you're just throwing technology at it. The key is that you really need to change the way that work is done that takes advantage of that technology, creating new business practices that also take full advantage of the skills in our ever-changing and dynamic workforce. And that's the formula for driving digital transformation, where you can not only get transformative results in terms of dollars, improved customer experience leading to incremental revenue, significant cost savings, significant uptime improvements in plants, but have a sustainable business practices built on this technology, that this wasn't just a project, right? This is actually a new way of doing things that's going to sustain our business long-term into the future. And so that when I talk about digital transformation, when we talk about digital transformation at Verison, we're not talking about process improvement. We're talking about actually delivering transformative results. So you may be asking, so what do you guys have to do with this? How do you play in the digital transformation space? So, our mission, we aim to help customers realize transformative results by changing the way materials are managed, by using technology to build resilient supply networks. That's the mission we're on. So notice it's not a mission to help you manage materials a bit better within the constraints of your existing supply chain. So these words are very intentional, and we'll talk a bit about what that means. And I mentioned earlier in the introduction that one of the reasons I joined Verison was that when I began to work with this company in the Supply Chain Innovation Center, I realized there was a gaping hole in most folks' digital transformation strategies and journeys. You may be involved in digital transformation today, you may be getting started, but for the most part, folks today are, using these technologies in areas like procurement and sourcing and supply chain and operations, IT and finance, to really get impressive, transformative results. But when it comes to the world of materials management, my observation has been that for the most part, I have a need based upon my operation for materials. And for the most part, I'm throwing that need over the wall, so to speak, to business practices that have been in place since my career began last century. They just don't look that different, right? So why is that? Why are we still, trying to solve problems in this space by doing the same things we've always been doing, maybe trying a little harder? Well, largely because it's a complex problem. It's complex due to a lot of reasons, like there's a lot of parties involved in supply chain, which means there's also a lot of disconnected systems involved in supply chain, which means that all those systems that are disconnected and have their own data in it, that data is very disconnected, and it doesn't talk to each other very well. It's wildly inconsistent or inaccurate or even incorrect. And the result of this, as companies continue to transform other parts of their business, materials management is becoming a drag on progress and sub-optimizing the potential value that companies can achieve in their digital transformation journeys. So what are folks trying to do to drive change in this area today? And for the most part, companies are taking what I would call the traditional approach, which is data projects. Let's work on the data. The only way I can make my ERP or my EAM or my MRP systems work is I've got to get the data right. If my data is right, those systems work correctly, I get the positive outcomes I'm after. And folks have achieved varying levels of success in this. But if any of you have ever been involved in these projects, you know that these are very big endeavors, right? Often involve consultants or third parties. It's a project that usually takes a long time to deliver on. And ultimately, once you've kind of gone through and worked on the data, oh, somebody just entered another material in the system and they didn't follow our standardized template here. Or, I just bought a new piece of equipment and loaded all those parts in my storeroom and they don't look anything like the parts I have in there. Or we just bought a company and integrated them and they're on a different system and we can't make our stuff talk to each other. Ultimately, the job never feels done. And I've yet to speak to anyone that's gone down this road. And folks have achieved some positive outcomes going this way, but I've never had anybody tell me they've delivered transformative results by these data projects. And the reason being, it's not innovative, it's not transformative, because it's not delivering transformative results. Why? Well, it's a bit like Henry Ford said famously, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? Because that's what they knew. But Henry Ford did something truly innovative. He harnessed those horses into an engine and called it horsepower and blew by the horses like they were standing still in an automobile, which transformed the way that people got around. And that's how we think about transformation in this space, is if you really want to take a transformative approach, absolutely the data is important. But we need to harness that data with AI and some of these emerging technology tools that we have today to take full advantage of what the data is telling us. And we could do this in an always-on AI machine learning cloud-based system that provides self-cleaning, self-learning outcomes that can really enable us to change the way that we work and achieve those transformational results. So what does a transformed future state of materials look like? Well, we believe that looks like a resilient supply network. So what's a resilient supply network, you might ask? Well, I think we're aware of these sometimes, but really, what are we really trying to achieve here? The objective that we have in materials management is to have what we need, when we need it, where we need it, with maximum efficiency and without all the waste in today's traditional supply chain. That's the outcomes that we're after, right? So, you could think of supply resiliency much like Uber. So, Uber didn't go out and build faster taxis. They didn't build a new fleet of taxis. They said, wow, we've got a lot of underutilized assets out there on the road today. I can use some advanced algorithms to tap into that resilient network available to us and put a really nice user experience around it for the consumers and transform the way that they that they call for rides, right? And it looks very, very little like the traditional taxi business using an Uber app, right? That's a resilient supply network. You've got optionality, you've got efficiency, and you've got a really nice user experience today, right? Excuse me. Likewise, if you look at today's siloed supply chains, I might have my operation. I've got my assets in my operation. I've got a storeroom here with my materials to support that operation and manage the risk in my operation. And I've got suppliers for that storeroom. And that's about as far as my visibility goes. And I'm most likely going to overinsure myself to ensure I don't have any failures because I can't afford to do that. And even though I'm overinsuring myself with all this inventory, I still get caught with not having the right thing I need, where I need, when I need it. And so we could ask ourselves, well, what if you could have that? What if instead of this lack of visibility that's very siloed, I had a multitude of options, just like on the Uber app? What if I had a multitude of options for how I could fulfill my supply needs? Well, that does a couple of things. One is that it lowers risk to my operations tremendously, because instead of just a few options down my siloed supply chain, I've got exponentially more optionality for how I can address supply and reduce risk to operations. And I can do that eliminating a ton of waste in the supply chain and working capital. So the traditional paradigm in this space has been, if I'm going to, it's a trade-off. If I'm going to reduce inventories, I'm going to incur risk. And that's the trade-off you make. Well, with a truly resilient supply network, that paradigm is shattered, and you can have both. You should be able to drive out waste and lower risk in operations. So that's really the vision for how we see materials management working in the future. But there's a journey to get there if you want to enable this kind of resiliency. So where does Verison start on this journey? And where we start with all of our customers is with something that we call the material truth. So what's the material truth? Well, the material truth is a combination of intelligence from various sources that, using AI and machine learning, I can get actionable insights that drive profitable actions immediately without having to go through and do this data first project to make my systems work. So the components of this, we could think about all the data in your systems, and it can be in your single instance of an ERP system. Maybe your company has 5 different instances of the same ERP, or 5 different instances of different ERPs. But that's your systems data, and it's the material intelligence. And this is the data that we all know to be not always correct, right? So it's dirty, it needs to be cleaned, it's inconsistent, or it's inaccurate. And so if we want to really get to the material truth, we really need to capture the data, the tribal knowledge that lives in people's heads before they retire, right? If Joe retires next year, we're in trouble. Well, let's find out what Joe knows and let's institutionalize that information somehow, right? So we provide a way to do this on our platform, to not only have this material intelligence across systems that we can harmonize, but also the human intelligence, the tribal knowledge that we can capture, that supplements and complements that systems knowledge and completes the picture, so that we can really make much, much better decisions. And then as we start thinking about Industry 4.0, and industrial Internet of Things, all the sensors that I can put on equipment for asset health or process technology, or anything that I can know in the new Industry 4.0 world, now I can get a lot more predictive, right, in ways that I never could before. And that's another demand signal, right, that we can say we've got our systems data, we have our human intelligence, and now we've got predictive data coming online more and more each and every day in industry that really should tell us proactively and reliably and accurately what our real material demands are, so that we can then start to build up new ways of working in this space to deliver transformative results. So that's what we do here at Verison. I'm not going to get into all the details of that on this webinar, but for the most part, I wanted to connect on this webinar how we think about digital transformation, what it is, what it isn't, the need. I think the most important thing when I talk to folks that are curious about this topic is if you're really going to have digital transformation, you've got to take advantage of the technology by changing the way that we work and rewriting those business practices. And we would be very excited, to work with you on exploring where your company is on this journey, what your problems are you're trying to solve, and how, perhaps we could take a different approach to tackle the problem and deliver, more positive outcomes quicker for you in the future. So that's really all I had, to present. I believe there might have been some questions popping into the chat, so I'll pause there and see if we have any questions from the crowd. And if you haven't put any in yet, feel free to drop questions in the chat there. And Crawford's sitting right next to me here, and he'll read them out to me.
Great, Aaron. And yeah, we do have a few questions. I'm gonna try and go in order for. We just had another question come in as I was speaking. I'm trying to go in order for kind of what you talked about. So first, you mentioned earlier on changing the way the work is done with regards to materials management. Is there anything crucial that you need to fix or establish internally before moving forward with a project like this? Is there anything that jumps out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I worked a lot in the reliability space, for example, right? And one thing that we had a hard time understanding until we actually did it was sometimes by going into the digital transformation journey, getting the intelligence. So for example, as we started to put sensors on every piece of equipment we could put a sensor on economically, that told us where we needed to focus our efforts. It told us where the problems were, and therefore where the opportunities were. And it really helped us, as we're going through the journey, get better and better at it as we went. So, and I think the same is true in this space, where we're saying, you don't have to fix the data first to get involved in the project. We can fix the data. We can fix the data as we go, right? That could be an outcome of the journey, but it's not a prerequisite to get started. We can get actionable insights, take profitable action right away, as soon as we have the intelligence available to us. And there might be other drivers for why we want to, maybe harmonize the data in our systems of record and things like that. But that's not a constraint anymore to getting, significant results quicker.
Great. And next question, what do you and Verison have to say about data governance for supply chain management?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question too. I had somebody ask that this morning on a call with India very early this morning. And, so data governance, so we're really about profitable, actionable insights that you can take immediately. We're not the data governance tool, but we could be a data governance enabler. So if for example, by using our platform and harmonizing the data across multiple systems, that 20 items in your material catalog are actually the same thing, we could take actions knowing that today. And now where you've got a big problem to go solve in your systems of record. And that's one of those examples of pointing you, if data governance is something that you need to go address, we can help highlight where those big opportunities are. It's like, focus here first, where you have 20 items that are the same, versus over here where it's just 2, right? So we're not a data governance tool. We're an intelligence tool for positive outcomes, but we can provide useful insights that could point you to where to focus your efforts in those data governance efforts. That's my, I'm an industry guy, once again, not a technology guy. So that's my point of view. I'll qualify all my answers that way. So.
Great. And follow-up question, Michael, we're going to take that one offline, but we will get back to you. Next question about AI and training. How long does it take to train the AI for your project? Because obviously, industries, companies are very different.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. Thanks for asking that. So it depends a bit, but in all cases, it's pretty dang fast. So we've brought on new industries as we've grown. So we brought on our first energy customer, our first, CPG company. Even in those cases, we're able to turn around actionable insights on the data in, weeks, right? So you're talking 30, 45, 60 days top early on. But now, as I bring in my next energy company or my next utility or my next forest products company, we're turning that around in 30 days. So 30 days from the date that we get the data from however many systems you have, the more the merrier, you will have actionable recommendations coming back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then here we go. Another back to data, or back to AI, excuse me. Where does AI sit, or where does it plug in to the current systems? Do they export data? How does it plug into what you've already got set up?
Yeah, so we're basically like this intelligence layer. So we're not going to replace your ERP system. We're going to help you use your ERP system better, right? So think of us as the intelligence layer where we can get data from your systems, provide the actionable insights that then you can take those in your systems of record, right? There are ways we can extract data and put data back in and things like that, which I'm going to get way out of my depth technically if you ask me to try to answer that, as that's not my expertise. But I think it is important to know that even from a change management standpoint, we're not asking you to go out and say, I've got 2,000 people around the enterprise globally, I don't have to retrain on how to manage materials. Well, nope, they're still going to work in the systems they're working in. They're just going to have this ammunition over here of great intelligence of how they need to be doing that better. And that's how we've been having success with our customers today.
Fantastic. And then last question, at least right now, is how does the AI approach managing risk, or is it just a tool for reducing and optimizing inventory?
Yeah, that's another great one. I really appreciate that question. So inventory optimization, working capital reduction, deduplication of data, these are great outcomes of using AI to do a tool like this. That's not really the objective, so to speak. I mean, it is a objective, and it's going to build the business case for why you should engage in an effort like this. But our objective, once again, is really to use the AI to break down those barriers. So now we can start operating differently, such that we're doing things like, now across my entire enterprise, I can see exactly what everybody has and know what's duplicates, what's not. I can have maybe some spend level analytics I didn't have before. And by the way, if I've got some of my strategic suppliers also on the platform, which we're doing that now, bringing on distributors in this space with some of our customers, why could I not just have those guys have insights to my demand signals? And why would I even carry inventory at all if they can be so great at fulfilling my needs that way? So those are really the objectives that we're after. The inventory reductions, the waste elimination, that pays for the effort big time, and it's easy to measure. Measuring, how do you measure supply resiliency? Well, it's easy to measure when you don't have it, when a ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal and all of a sudden you're out of all kinds of materials. I think all those companies can measure how much revenue they lost or cost they incurred, and nobody wants that. So there's value in avoiding that situation, right? So inventory reduction, it's a great tool for building the business case, and it delivers big value quick, and bigger value than the traditional data approaches for sure. I mean, our customers are seeing, 3x, say the return on an inventory optimization project, although that's not, our only objective. It's just a result of taking this disruptive approach than they might see engaging with another alternative.
Fantastic. And with that, we're out of questions. So I will give everyone just a few minutes back. As far as follow-ups, we will be sending out a recording and the slides very shortly. So please stay tuned to your inboxes. Thank you very much for attending.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.